Hey everyone, this is Lori with 3 Keys Astrology, as well as I do business with Miss Astrolata. You can go to astrolata.com for all my services, which currently feature the Black Moon Lilith readings. I do them for couples and I do them for individuals. They entail a 2-part Zoom session with me. And the character and subject that I am talking about today has incredible Black Moon Lilith issues. So, as you know, I started a series in October called Crimes, Critters, and Criminals, and I take a look into the astrological, psychological, sociological constructs of one's being, the human's being, that are somehow, some way involved in criminality and corruption. Today's subject is apropos for the Ghislaine Maxwell trial that is on in New York City. This is Monday, December 20th. It actually coincides with the wedding anniversary of the character that I am going to talk to you about. Make no mistake, Black Moon Lilith and Pluto, Scorpio, and Eris all use the tool power to wield their corruption. On the video, on the channels on YouTube, 3Keys Astrology and Astrolata.com with Lori, you can see all of my work thus far on Black Moon Lilith for 2022, and that's what those readings entail. The person that we're going to examine today was a key background player in the Jeffrey Epstein scandals, and the parallel between Victoria's Secret and the secrets of the little girls molested by the most powerful men on the earth, men who were billionaires, men who controlled much in our daily lives, as you'll soon find out. I would ask you to put yourself, as you view this video, in the place of the parents of those little girls. I would ask you to try to remember the child in you at age 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And I would ask you for utmost compassion, prayer, and anything in your political power to do to see that these little girls have justice. I'm feeling very disappointed in the underwhelming trial for the devil that is Ghislaine Maxwell. In my opinion, she's as evil as Jeffrey Epstein is. She's as evil as Prince Andrew is. And every single one of those disgusting men, Dershowitz, Clinton, the Arab prince, there was a musician, all these people that molested these young girls. Now, the parallel that I ask you to remember, the person that I'm analyzing today in specific detail to the situation at hand now, this law case involving Ghislaine Maxwell. The parallel is that, as I said in the last video, when I analyzed Prince Andrew, you can go see, I'll link some of the videos and the work that I've done to this, have to do with, I said, without my words being so pointed that I wish they could have been, that the money exchanged, I want you to think about the money that these swindlers and rapists gave these little girls for a moment, in parallel to the billionaires that manipulated them. Again, Black Moon Lilith, Eris, Pluto, and Scorpio, and Taurus all have to do with sex and money. The person that I'm going to analyze today is the owner, an extraordinary CEO, billionaire, and very wealthy businessman, Leslie Wexner. You may not know that name, but maybe this video will help you go look yourself at some of the characters who have everything to do with our everyday commerce, and have. Leslie Wexner was born on September 8th, 1937, to Russian immigrants who were store owners, and he went to Ohio State University, got himself a degree in business administration. Like many Virgos, is bright. He was a real go-getter. We'll talk about the elements in his chart that explain his energy and how he presented and still presents in the world today. His life would eventually entangle with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, many of the founders of the most important and successful businesses in America today came from really intelligent Jewish immigrants. I mean, over and over and over again. This Russia is so close to Asia, and genetically, this population are gifted with higher IQs and brighter intellects. And because of the sad and corrupt and criminal scar and hatred put upon our beloved Jewish friends and family when that monster and Nazi Adolf Hitler hurt so many people that we love and their family members. Scars like karma are generational. I do legacy readings. I see it over and over again. And that when a whole race of people are exploited and abducted, humiliated, and killed, it puts this generational imprint on everybody born with the blood that was splattered all over our earth that still makes me cry so much. The hatred that is in some of these monsters is abominable, and I please ask that when you watch these videos, put yourself in the shoes of the little girls. This is not funny. She doesn't deserve to be forgiven. Ghislaine Maxwell is evil. Jeffrey Epstein is evil, and I hope he's rotting in hell, or that he will get there, wherever he is, if he's still alive. Leslie Wexner, if you choose to mate, marry, cross paths with, live with, socialize with, engage in friendships with evil people, energy is contagious. It'll get on you. Leslie Wexner was born 8 September 1937, and for 50 years, he's been one of the richest men in the world. He chairs Ohio State University. He's probably got many business connections that I can't begin to get into in this small analysis, but born in Dayton, Ohio, he was raised in Columbus, Ohio. His parents had some kind of business, but he far exceeded. And I have to say, the quality of his clothing is fine. Indeed, I worked for one of his companies when I was raising my daughters. Leslie Wexner, who is he, you say, if you're watching from another part of the country in the world and you don't know? A Russian immigrant. And of Jewish and Russian capitalism, he's got a grand earth stellium, a grand earth trine, which is a good significator for somebody that's able to build and accumulate wealth. All of the earth signs have this potential and desire, actually, and he's got it very strong in his chart. So, who is he? Well, he's worth billions and billions of dollars. Remember the Limited Express, Victoria's Secret, Bath and Body, Structure for Men? What about Abercrombie and Fitch? I have a little something to say about Abercrombie and Fitch. How about the Albany Company? The Abercrombie and Fitch, if you recall, had something to do about his psyche that I find very interesting. So those of us that are mothers that have shopped there, or if you're young enough to have shopped there when you were in your teens, if you will have noticed back in those days, Abercrombie and Fitch's clothing sizes went down too to what the average and the standard was. I want you to think about a small woman. Small, emaciated, tiny, immature, prepubescent, just entering puberty, and look at and follow with me and stay with me in the parallels that have to do with Victoria's Secret's CEO Leslie Wexner and Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's corruption, as well as every single man, Dershowitz, Schumer, all these creeps that hurt these little girls, whether it was directly involved or indirectly involved. Now, if you are someone who's interested in business, you're going to know who Goldman Sachs is. So let's talk about that for a minute. But before we go there, let's stay with Abercrombie and Fitch. So Victoria's Secret shows us half-naked women, sometimes three-quarters naked. And the excitement and fantasy that is when you're wearing fine lingerie, when you're parading in front of thousands and thousands and thousands of people, millions on the television screen. And there's rock concerts, musicians, and the finest musicians in the background of this annual Victoria's Secret show, where these women prance like ponies and strut their stuff, wearing diamond brassieres and lingerie that we can only dream about, jewels of fantasy. It's interesting, Leslie Wexner's chart, for he has his Venus in Leo, and he loves this elaborated, fantastical woman and Jeffrey Epstein. And Leslie Wexner would cross paths, likely due to their heritage and likely due to investment banking. So CEO for over 50 years, chairman of Ohio State University, has run a very successful business for 5 decades. But like Abercrombie and Fitch's teeny tiny 0 sizes and 3 sizes, and even if you were an average size woman wearing a size 7, you couldn't fit into any of his clothing. In fact, you would be extra large according to Abercrombie and Fitch's tiny, perfect, emaciated, small woman. A diminished woman, an emaciated woman, a naked woman, talking about vulnerability and the parallel to the vulnerability of those little girls that Leslie Wexner, I'm sure, met. Did he have sex with them? Only those little girls can tell us if they dare come forward. And their courage and bravery is something that we should admire and honor, and many of us do. It is like valor in the military when they dare come forward and face such powerful men. So while that $200 and $300 they got paid as they were being raped and massaging monsters, that money, think about that money and how it would be equivalent to these billionaires and their bank accounts and status. And think about that little tiny helpless woman on islands in desolate places, away from anybody that could protect her. And then the shame involved. You know, not everybody knows what sex is when they're 12, 13, 14. They just don't. It doesn't, I mean, they were picking girls that came from other countries, that were without their family and friends. They threatened them. And then once they enticed and seduced these wealthy men into these very salacious, sexual, deviant massages, oral sex, all the things that they were doing, the parties they had, with the full intention of blackmailing them. So let's talk about, before I get into the analysis, so Wexner's a retail giant. Many of us in all the malls across America, and many of these businesses filtered over to worldwide. So Abercrombie and Fitch, the Limited Express, Bath and Body Works, Victoria's Secret, the Albany Company, Structure for Men. Interesting name, and I'll tell you why when I analyze his chart for you. He had serious Moon Pluto issues, and he had serious issues, which entails power and domination and control over people. Moon Pluto has a very intense energy. Now, Pluto represents the public, and these were women in public that the few select creme de la creme that had to starve themselves and try out like cheerleading competitions were forbidden to eat and were often given gobs of cocaine. It's disgusting what they did. Moon Pluto is that devil pulling the woman down into some kind of hell. Sexual sin, manipulation, drug use, forcing them to physically emaciate so they would fit into his bras, his lingerie, to exploit for all the world to see, because Moon Pluto is very exploitive. So That's one of the key signatures that we're going to see as we talk about what's going on right now. So Leslie Wexner is a very old man, but he is, interestingly, chose a wife. Today is their anniversary. That was 24 years his junior. So he was 24 years old through college by the time his wife was born, and she's an attorney. And she's got some quite significant wealth too, because her mother was a Goldman. Remember Goldman and Sachs? Investment bankers. She's a lawyer. Many Victoria's Secret models discarded talk about the standard non-disclosure statement. Many have been paid millions to shut their mouths for the same kind of abuse that went on behind the doors of all of Jeffrey Epstein's horror houses. Someone just purchased his house in New York City. If you know who that is, please comment below. And comment below if you have any direct connection to any of these people. Chuck Schumer is one of the most two-faced politicians I've ever seen, who makes me sick. At this current moment, he's just nominated Ghislaine Maxwell's judge to be appointed at the appellate court. Is this the reason that the prosecution's case didn't come public for us? We want to know. We already know. We want validation by the prosecutor's office. Is she going to be pushed away in some little fluff and puff situation? We wonder, don't we? And just as I told you in the analysis of Ghislaine Maxwell, she had a very self-contained personality that's very Capricornian and reserved. And so she wouldn't talk. She didn't talk. Is it because she doesn't have to? Is it because of the Goldman Sachs, who the Clintons are involved with, the George Soroses, this Wexner family, and his wife, Koppel, the attorney, who likely penned all those non-disclosure agreements? We need to find the answers out, and these girls need justice. Let's stand behind them in any way we can, because it's not okay. People like this get away with things forever. This goes back to 1869, when Wexner's wife's family began the what would be the investment bankers and down in Lower Manhattan, Marcus Goldman, an Ashkenazi Jewish man who linked up with Weinsteins and Weinbergs. So Goldman's, Weinstein, Weinberg, Epstein, Wexner, all have this familial connection in the horrors that their families endured under the occupation, and came to America like many of our ancestors and grandparents and great-grandparents did, to be emancipated from the hell that was going on in that country. And my heart bleeds for them. But they brought the corruption to America with them, and now they started to behave in Nazi power-like ways over little girls, young women. These people, guys, have literally molded our commerce as we know it. And some of that's honorable, but a lot of it's dishonorable. So every mall in the country had the Limited, Bath and Body, Victoria's Secret. They got so wealthy by this fantasy image of women and what we could be sexually free. And yet these girls were confined and constrained in bustiers and corsets that were pinching their bones and crushing them, and they weren't allowed to eat. And they had to be teeny weeny tiny in order to be the fantasy. Again, putting women down, tying them up, constraining them, holding them down for this treasure of fame, fortune, Black Moon Lilith themes of money, and then that poverty within that wants what everybody else has and wants to be the prettiest and wants to be the best and wants to be the sexiest. That's that vortex hole of emptiness inside, and that poverty emotionally where one can be exploited. It's a different story when the little girls were connived and conned and didn't know better. And I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell promised them college educations, promised them travel, bought them clothes, took them out to dinner. Many of them have never had that. And then lured them with, just give a massage and I have a client, she said. No, actually, it was her lover, and the two were very perverted. So think about, I'd like to just tell you that the Goldman Sachs family in Philadelphia and in New York, and were part of JP Morgan's, they put their companies on stock exchanges. Who were they? Sears, the Lehman Brothers, the Levison Brothers, JP Morgan and Company, Woolworth Company. So these conglomerates of our materialistic world, and then the banking industry and the stock market and Wall Street, they have their initials all over our everyday lives, friends. So if you wonder why they're not getting hurt, why they're not punished, because they are the banks. They are the engine that makes the motor run in the United States of America, and have their banking affiliations in one of the biggest banking countries in the world, London, England, where the Queen can prevent her son, the spoiled golden child for whose analysis I did, Prince Andrew, and his corruption involved with these people. Now, I can't stand Hillary Clinton. I will be doing an analysis of the evil she is and explain to you why my deep guttural feelings about this woman turn my stomach and will turn yours when I tell you, and give you a link to go hear what's been made public about Miss Hillary Clinton and the abuse of a little girl. This woman's violent. She's scorpionic. And she's hateful and she's hellish. And there's a trail of evil with every step she takes and Bill Clinton takes. Again, exploiting the females, young females, harming them, hurting them, um, and scarring them for life. So I'd like to talk to you. The other thing that I didn't know, for a decade, Goldman partnered with Amazon in some kind of web services in the cloud. And we know in the age of Aquarius, power is in technology. We know in the age of Aquarius, to disconnect you from devices takes away your speech, is sort of a non-disclosure agreement. That's why the invasion from China to disconnect our telecommunications in this current biowarfare is something that we can't ignore, because the superpower and the Pluto power will be in those entities that have that power now that they've made all of us addicted to and reliant on our phones. Disconnections means you have no access to the money in your bank. Disconnections mean you can't go to work in telecommunications. Disconnections mean you don't know what's going on in the world. And we've all slowly been hypnotized into being totally self-reliant on the commerce that is e-commerce. So without further ado, I'm going to go and talk to you a little bit about this psychological complex of Mr. Leslie Wexner. All right, he's got his sun, his Mercury retrograde, and Neptune in the house of a very hard worker, Virgo. When I talk to you about the name structure for men, he's got Saturn retrograde in Aries on his ascendant, and his moon is in the salacious sign of Scorpio in the 8th house, where Ghislaine Maxwell's Capricorn stellium is, where Prince Andrew's Sun Pisces moon is. And people that have moon in Scorpio are often very, very fascinated early in their lives with adult matters. And an Aries ascendant person is selfish. Now, he's got Saturn opposite Mercury retrograde. So Mercury retrograde is an interesting phenomenon where people think differently. And the most important thing, I think, is that Virgo stellium connected to his Jupiter in Capricorn at the top of his chart, and then Uranus retrograde in Taurus. Let's pay attention to that, because that's happening to him right now. And the world found out that he indeed made Jeffrey Epstein guardian of his estate and his financial affairs. I question and wonder and want and hope that the feds are investigating, and also the entity that is the Securities Commission in the United States of America to see where this money got filtered and sent it around. You always follow the money. So Uranus retrograde in Taurus in his second house is opposite his moon in the sixth house. There was just as much corruption going on in Victoria's Secret as there was behind the closed doors of the haunted mansions and horror stories of this sexual deviance between Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeff Epstein, and the commerce that they made and the trafficking that they did all over the world. So his Mercury, they say that he was short, cut, could slice you with his words. And what's interesting about Moon Scorpio is while they've got this deep, perverted, and stalking kind of interest and energy in everybody else's sex life, or can be sexually deviant with the aspects that are in his chart, Moon Pluto, the underground sex, that sex behind closed doors. This is a significator of the cheater and someone who's a slave to his sexual appetite. Aries in the Aries ascendant with Saturn on a rising sign opposite his sun, which is conjunct Neptune. And therein it lies the fantasy and the beautiful creative energy that we saw making manifest in a Libra way on those runways, in those stores. Saturn on the ascendant wants, like I said, the name structure for men. Leslie Wexner would have been raised by a very strong and powerful mother that he had conflicted feelings about. And she probably was more powerful than his father, in my opinion, and according to the analysis of this chart. The complex that a young man gets when his mother is invading his private life, his sex life, his personal life, that awkward feeling when that little boy starts to become a man and he's not quite so sure, and especially in religious families or families that were prominent, there's something weird going on when you're so controlled by your sexuality. He is. Aries rising is ruled by Mars, and having a Mars Saturn retrograde energy on the ascendant is a stop and go of wanting and those underlying sexual desires that are in conflict with what's appropriate for society, and then the fantasy that he makes with Sun in Neptune. That was beautiful. What I was going to say is I loved the order and the structure and the professionalism that he had in the Limited and Bath and Body, Abercrombie and Fitch, and Structure for Men. I loved it. The clothes were folded beautifully. The stores were as neat as a pin. And we can see this. This CEO expects that. I would expect his home to look as pristine, that he would always be dressed well. We can see this, but he can be he can cut you to pieces with the razor that is his tongue, with a birth chart and the energies like he has. Sun with Mercury retrograde can get quite ugly with their words in a Virgo's way, and it's squaring his Mars, his black moon, and his north node in Sagittarius. Now, one of the things about Sagittarius that I personally happen to love is that they're blunt in their honesty. They are so honest, Sagittarians can't lie. But he can. He's got Black Moon Lilith there. And his North Node is in Sagittarius at the top of his chart, along with Jupiter and Capricorn at the top of his chart. And he amassed all kinds of wealth. And in a very masculine way, the appeal was to we, the female sex. A world full of men wouldn't be a very interesting world, and I think many of you will agree. We of the female sex are what dreams are made of, what songs are written about. We're pretty. Men desire us. And he, with his Sun and Neptune, I'm sure along with creative collaborators, took us into the Disney world of Victoria's Secret. People lined up like they do on the runway in New York City to see these models wearing $1 million emerald bras and all this fine lingerie. And you couldn't be a Victoria's Secret model unless you were the epitome of woman, according to men. And they were gorgeous, and they are gorgeous, and I still think they're very pretty. And I am a Venus person, doubly ruled by Venus, and then Cancer moon. I love the beauty that God created in women. Virgo, however, we talked a little bit about this in Ghislaine Maxwell's chart. Virgo wants the perfect woman, the ultimate woman. That's why the sign Virgo is ruled by our Blessed Mother, the Virgin Mary. She's the epitome of pristine purity. And somebody who's got a stellium in Virgo, sun, moon, or rising sign in Virgo, there's a part of them that they can't help that wants perfection. They're precise. I mean, our clothing in the limited stores and Bath and Body were folded perfectly. There's perfection involved in which woman would Leslie Wexner allow to be a Victoria's Secret model? Perfection plus, and that fantasy. They wore angels because, like I told you, he has his Venus in Leo, which is beautiful, and it trines his Mars in Sagittarius and connects to his rising sign in Aries. This masculine drive and energy was the excitement that made us want to rush there, or made us feel really pretty if we wore those clothing. Those were the kind of clothes every girl dreamed about. And we can thank him for that fantasy. But when Black Moon Lilith touches your Mars in Sagittarius, and when you meet people like Jeffrey Epstein and start to negotiate with him, and then bring him into your business, and then partake in the favors that he has to offer, that's the karmic, because the North Node in Sagittarius wants the highest, wants the best, wants more, and more, and more. And let's go to that land, and let's go to that country, and let's invest in this, and let's invest in that, because Black Moon Lilith, make no mistake, is as power hungry as is a Moon Pluto anomaly. His sun squares Mars. So he had some issues internally with his masculinity, that the conflict happened to be in the moon, the issues that he had with his mother and feeling personally invaded as he was becoming a man. Moon Pluto in the 8th house is codependent on his sexual desires that may not be appropriate for the world as we know it today. And so it's interesting that his rising sign in Aries is ruled by Mars, that his Mars is with Black Moon Lilith, and that his moon, a Mars ruled sign of Scorpio, and Pluto ruled, talks about, absolutely has a lot to do with power and control in sexual situations. I think that Uranus and Taurus, which is involved in his trine, may be a place, if the people who matter and the people that are honest and the lawyers in power that are truly doing justice, for there are many more good lawyers, good judges than there are corrupt people. I think the Securities and Trade Commission and financial investigators and the FBI looking into these signatures where he and Jeffrey Epstein shared financial, professional, and private coups, that there indeed could be some money freed up because his Uranus is retrograde in Taurus right now and for the next 2 years. Should those investigations be done and they follow the money and take a little closer into his wife's legal dealings, as well as the Clintons, Goldman Sachs, Weinsteins, Epsteins, Weinbergs, and the little links that hook and chain them all into one big mess from here to England, there can be some real healing here. The next 2 years, Taurus and Scorpio, happening right now, started on November 19th for the world at large. The nodes of our sex and our money and people in power who use sex to manipulate. And this is about these little girls. You guys, it's not okay for us to keep letting these powerful men off the hook. It's not okay for the nightmares and the shame and the guilt, and especially the shame that the defense attorneys put upon these girls. One of the creeps, Jim Comey's daughter, the former FBI agent that lied through his teeth to Congress and pretended he didn't know anything. has a daughter-in-law who's part of the defense team, or I'm sorry, part of is one of the defendants for Ghislaine Maxwell. I mean, how could you? I would rather give up my life, my law license, than stick up for somebody like a Ghislaine Maxwell and a Jeff Epstein. What do you think about that? And again, in a Black Moon Lilith way, they're for sale. Lawyers that stick up for people that are vile, they've got the right. They took the oath to say, I can't represent you. I'm going to get out. Somebody like you is against my values, my morals. But some people in Black Moon Lilith ways will do anything to have money, prestige, and fame. Yeah, her name's all over the place, but would you want to be affiliated with Ghislaine Maxwell or Jeff Epstein? Or for that matter, Leslie Wexner now? There are plenty of Victoria's Secret models who've been hushed and paid hush monies and by non-disclosure agreements. So we see a man that was given, I mean, he worked hard. I'm going to give him that. He got an education. He built quite an empire. That's lovely. But his cross to bear was when he took his hard-earned money and let his Scorpio moon, connected to Pluto, squaring Pluto, and his sexual issues contaminate his business life. And he has. How and why he signed his money over to Epstein is something that we want the answers to. So people that have his Pluto's in Leo, where his Venus is also at. And this can be a rape signature, guys. And it's with his moon squaring Pluto also. It's kind of feeling like I'm unwanted and nobody got me and they don't understand me, and so they go off into these fantasy sexual situations behind closed doors. People that go to escorts have these issues. People that are involved in sadomasochism have these issues. And in an academic slant to Moon Pluto, we can investigate the masochism that is going behind closed doors with people that are minors, going behind closed doors and paying for sex when your family members don't know that you do that kind of thing. He does that kind of thing. It's clear. And because his mother controlled his environment when he was little and he felt it intruded upon, now he's short and curt with his words. And he's got to be that ultimate Moon Pluto, the head of this billion-dollar corporation. Pluto's a very heady, intense energy. So is Black Moon Lilith. And both have to do with sexuality and things underground. Pluto is the signature of the billionaire. It's that immense money that's so big it's oil, it's underground resources. It's rich, rich, rich. And he did achieve that kind of wealth. His Uranus is squaring Venus. So those girls had sudden, unexpected surprises that decided to become Victoria's Secret models. They told them not to eat. They handed them grams of cocaine. And they did whatever they had to stay where they were because of their own issues about being the prettiest, being the best, making the most money. People that want to strut on stages in front of people have some deep Black Moon Lilith issues and a lack inside where they want to be acknowledged. Look at me now. I'm on stage. Everybody in the world knows me. But Leslie Wexner's Saturn opposite his Mercury and his Sun Neptune, which squares his Mars, Black Moon Lilith, and Pluto, his North Node in Sagittarius, opposite Gemini, those two faces on his IC, where his South Node and Chiron is, right between Gemini. Cancer always follows Gemini, which it's the little girl and the woman again. And it's really, really sad. So I hope you found this analysis interesting. I mean, the wealth is clear with Jupiter, Saturn. He is a hard worker. He did work really hard to get where he is. But the cross came to bear in his moon square Pluto, his Black Moon Lilith, Mars, North Node, squaring his Sun, Neptune, the fantasy of mankind, really. And every day, he made it accessible for the everyday Joe. Virgo's the everyday Joe. He's the guy who works in service. He made it so we could all go to the mall and pretend we were a Victoria's Secret model if we were female. and pretend that we were the fantasy of our husband when we bought their lingerie. And that is the sun and man's fantasy. And I don't have anything against, I have zero against fantasy and feeling beautiful and the excitement that happens between a man and a woman and their shared love, partnership, fantasy, sexuality. I'm 100% for it, but I'm 100% against it when it's illegal, when people are being raped, when minors are involved. And I hope that you see the parallel between Victoria's Secret's emaciation and all this big money to those in abused by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and all those powerful men, Prince Andrew, Dershowitz, Schumer, these filthy pigs that exploited these little girls, manipulated them, and then threatened them, as well as the men who partook. Did Bill Gates? Probably. The names, why we want names, name names. We got none of that from the trial so far. It'll probably wrap up this week, and I think we're going to hear a sentence likely before the end of the year or in early January. And so yeah, check out Leslie Wexner and tell me what you think, what you know. His Saturn is squaring Chiron too, so there was some painful interpersonal issues about his sexuality, Moon Pluto, and Chiron was attached to his moon too. And like I said, he was 24 years old when he married his current wife. They had 4 children. I didn't look any further to see if he was married before that because he didn't marry her till he was 55 and she was 31. And she is a lawyer. And she does have those same familial roots that he has. And yeah. So tell me what you think, you guys. These people have really spun some ugly, dirty webs and are entangled in some really ugly and criminal financial dealings. And yet they've made the world that we know it. In the town that I grew up, there were Levison brothers. I have really good friends that are Jewish. They've worked very, very hard to make our everyday American life easier. And we thank them for that. And like I said, the clothing was the finest at Structure, at Abercrombie and Fitch, at the Limited. That clothing's beautiful and it's made of fine quality. The Jewish people that I know always would rather have a little bit of fine quality than to have a lot of junk that's made of plastic clothing. So, we love this about him. His Saturn retrograde on his rising sign talks about hard work again, which is complementing his sun in Virgo, saying, and the fantasy too. And like I said, that's okay. We deserve to dream, imagine, to feel like princesses and be pretty. We like to watch those shows. And that's all okay when it's clean and virgin pure, like Virgo is. It's not, though. It's just not. And the fantasy of men, the masculine sex, who enjoyed the corruption, Sun Neptune in Virgo, squaring Mars, Black Moon, Lilith, and North Node in Sagittarius, means that he too, there, no question in my mind that he's been involved with these young and little girls and some of the models. No question in my mind. But he didn't want us to know. His Mercury retrograde squares Chiron, so I think that he's often felt misunderstood. And, when we have these sexual perversions and these deviances that we don't go get help for, it can't help but explode. Pluto explodes the moon in the public. Black Moon Lilith against White Moon Lilith, or White Moon, the white light of the moon. He doesn't have light where females are concerned. His moon is in Scorpio. That's not a nice place for the moon. And his Black Moon, we already know, is an evil entity of want and greed and lust attached to his Mars in Sagittarius, says he's going to go for it. And so it'll be interesting. If you know of any federal investigations going on to their finances, please comment below and I'll look a little deeper into that. I hope you're enjoying these videos and more importantly that you love astrology. I've got room for 3 more students in my Astrology by the Stars school. You can come and join class with me at 3keysastrology.com, www.3keysastrology.com, or my services and offerings are also listed at astrological.com. More importantly, let's root out Black Moon Lilith. She is in the house of Mr. Wexner with his South Node this year, and with retrograde Uranus, retrograde Saturn, retrograde Mercury, we could for sure, and retrograde Jupiter, we could for sure. So all of you investigators that want to go look into his finances, go, says this astrologer, because your pick, shovels, and axes are getting big powers in the universe to tell the truth, to find him out, to investigate and out his financial connections to Mr. Jeffrey Epstein and Miss Ghislaine Maxwell. And that's all I have to say for now. It's Christmas week. I'm only going to work for a couple more days. So reach out to me if you want your readings. Going to take a little holiday vacation. And I hope you will too. And while we're very interested in the dark side of human nature, never ever forget, as long as you live, that there's 1,000 times more good. And the light is always brighter than the dark. And for all these dirty scumbag people that have corrupted and criminalized their own lives by exploiting and raping other people. No, the dirty judges, the dirty lawyers, by far, there's 1,000 times better. And there's a lot of people all over the world talking about justice, all over the world, that are on the side of those little girls. And again, if any of you women, want my astrological help, I'm more than happy to help you. I've already helped some of you, and I welcome you more. It's not okay with us what they did to you. And if my astrology insight can help you in any way heal, I'm here for you. I'm here for you in my prayers. But you just remember, guys, like the Star of Bethlehem, mankind, all of these great people that go into law to make justice and serve justice are like that Star of Bethlehem. Things we can look up to, and we can admire the dirt, grit, and strength and endurance that Leslie Wexner created in these stores that an everyday man, where his sun, Mercury, and Neptune and Virgo are, could go into these stores and purchase this finery. We applaud him for that, but we don't want to shop in places like that when we find out that virginal blood is sacrificed, that people are scarred psychologically and emotionally for the rest of their lives, that they never get to have clear, pure, sacred pleasure and intimacy because they've been harmed so badly. It's not okay. And I'm a mother of 3 daughters and grandmother of 2 grandsons. And this world is not okay. The universe is coming in clean. The stars are shining brightly to say, it's not okay anymore. We're not going to take it. And they're not going to get away with it. So Schumer and Clintons and Goldman Sachs and Soroses and anybody corrupt, the Weinsteins and Epsteins of the world, we're coming for you. And for those of us that only have a mercurial platform in journalism or in the news, we're going to let everybody know just who you are. And it's my great pleasure to read and analyze so that they're outed. So somebody somewhere picks up the baton and takes the next step that has the legal power to do so. And with that, I leave you in conclusion that Leslie Wexner has a 6th house, triple stellium, Sun, Neptune, Mercury retrograde, and Virgo, squaring his Black Moon Lilith, Mars, and North Node in Sagittarius opposite, where he's got a Black Moon Lilith opposition right here, right now as we speak. What does that mean to you FBI investigators or lawyers that want to look into his financial dirty dealings? That you can get him easily right now. And he's got, and push can come to shove, and there can be justice for sure. So go get him. Uranus, he's got a Uranus return. His Uranus natal is retrograde. Uranus right now is retrograde, and it's smacking him and coming right for him. So that's the truth, the pure unadulterated truth in his financial dealings, the 2nd house, opposite his moon, what he tries to hide from the public in Scorpio. That makes me excited. So go get him. Sick him, detectives. Get him, financial feds. Go get them. All right, you guys, you take care. Please comment below if there's some other moguls you want me to stick my astrological nose into, because I love this kind of work. And come get your Black Moon Lilith readings from me. Any couples struggling, any couples who want to end Black Moon Lilith issues between them for power and control, so that you can be a healthy, productive partner with each other and get rid of these Black Moon Lilith greeds, lusts, and insatiable holes of the soul. I can help you. Take care, you guys. Merry Christmas. Bye for now.